Today, we're going to be learning about Oneco, Florida. Quite literally, one of the most miserable and mismanaged municipalities in the entire state of Florida. Oneco is a suburb of Bradenton, and its boundaries are undefined. And while there's no official information on Oneco, I can tell you from my travels that it has the highest per capita percentage of the population that is homeless of anywhere in the state of Florida. Oneco just exists somewhere in Manatee County. It isn't incorporated as a city. There isn't much analytical information on this area. It's just a place that exists in Florida, a place that is struggling, a place that has poverty and misery on levels found nowhere else in the state of Florida. Attached to Bradenton, Florida, every time the city of Bradenton has raids to crack down on homelessness, the homeless flock to Oneco and flood the city streets. Analytically, it would be hard to draw a conclusion on what the composition of Oneco is, because after all, it is unincorporated. And not only is it unincorporated, it's uncared for. I recently did a survey on a Facebook group about the most embarrassing communities in Manatee County, and 49% of the votes said that Oneco is the most embarrassing community in Manatee County. Now, despite the reputation and difficulties that this community faces, among them being one of the poorest in Florida, I personally enjoy going to this community for its diversity of ethnic foods and businesses. And while the community has a horrible reputation, a massive homeless problem, I actually enjoy to go to this community, and I go here often to support small businesses. So while there are no official demographics about this community, I'm going to do the best I can from the businesses and information that I know about this community to give you guys an idea of the identity of Oneco. An identity that, despite many hardships, is still a place of good people. Most of the time when a community becomes poor and crime-ridden and full of homeless, most of us avoid those places. But there's something about Oneco that attracts people. The culture and the essence of this community is strong despite many of the hardships. So in today's video, we're going to inform you about the hardships that this community is facing, but we're also going to give you a little bit of the taste of the uniqueness of this community. Because despite being one of the poorest and most crime-ridden cities in Florida, or districts in Florida, since it's not really a city, well, despite all the hardships, there is something special about Oneco, its restaurants, its businesses, and the people that decide to voluntarily come to this neighborhood and hang out here despite all of the negative context. It is definitely not a place you should say, I'm proud to live here. When you say Oneco, what comes to mind is usually crime, homelessness, and poverty. So why do so many people come hang out here and support the small businesses? What makes Oneco special to some despite the many hardships that this community is facing? This is 15th Street East, and it runs north to south along the length of Oneco. Many food trucks of many Latin and Central American countries line this street, and people gather here on the weekends till late at night enjoying live music, even if it's just over the radio, and some good Latin food. Let's talk about some of the businesses that are here so we can understand the diversity of people that call this area home, and it's really diverse. A testament to the small Haitian community that exists here, Lamar Lacaille is a Haitian restaurant located in Oneco. I personally like their Haitian patties, but a lot of Haitian cuisine like fish, griot, rices, and many other tropical fruits like bananas and plantains all incorporate the Haitian cuisine, which is very similar to, let's say, Jamaican cuisine, if you've had that, but it's a little bit more spicy. Haitian food definitely has its unique profile of flavors, spicy and enjoyable. There's a significant Haitian community here, and this restaurant serves as an example of the culture and the influence that the Haitian community has had in Oneco. The most popular genre of music in Haiti is called compa, and compa is a type of music that incorporates many sounds from the Tejano music of Texas. This is the music that the artist Selena made popular. Today, the largest demographic in Oneco is Central American, and many of the businesses that line the boulevard will be Mexican, Honduran, Salvadorian, but the Haitian community has somewhat of a cultural tie to Latin America, and thus, usually wherever you have a Central American community established, you can also see Haitian communities attached to them, and in this case, that's why there is a significant Haitian community here. Oneco has a significant Honduran community. That food truck there on the right is Honduran. There's also sit-in restaurants that are Honduran as well. This little apartment complex has a pool, and it looks like in the past this might have been somewhat of a nice condo. Today, however, it looks fairly run down. Hondurans make a significant percentage of the population in Oneco. Honduran food is somewhat similar to Mexican food, but the flavor profiles are toned down, more flat, more home taste. One of their most common dishes is called a baleada, and it's something like a taco, but like a breakfast taco. The flavors are much more toned down. So it's somewhat similar to Mexican food, but almost feels American in that the flavors are just kind of toned down significantly. Baleadas are very common, and many of the food trucks here will have that. There's also a Honduran restaurant right on 15th Street, and if you go there, they also have the famous Honduran baleadas. Haiti's restaurant is one of 2 Honduran restaurants in Oneco, and it offers a great presentation of authentic Honduran foods. 15th Street serves kind of like the main street for Oneco, and by the way, many people call it Oneco because originally it was called One Company. However, today most people pronounce it Oneco. The pronunciation of Oneco still exists, and everybody just decides how they say it, but most people I've ran into pronounce it Oneco. Now, it is a poor district, and many of the restaurants are what we would call hole in the wall. And sadly and unfortunately, that is pretty much the category that most of these restaurants are going to fall under, hole in the wall. They're not fancy restaurants. It's an older, impoverished district, and if you like fancy dining, this probably isn't the place. As you drive down 15th Street, you'll see many rundown used car lots, many tire shops, which, by the way, if you ever get a flat tire anywhere in the Bradenton area, head here. These people will find a solution to your tire problems, especially during the winter time. If you get a flat tire, many of the shops are busy for weeks, and if you get a flat tire, you need to resolve it right away. This is the go-to spot to go for used tires in the area. Unfortunately, Oneco is plagued with homelessness, and as you drive around, you'll see huge crowds of homeless people. And I can't really guarantee this. I mean, I'm just going off of my personal experiences, but I can almost assure you that the per capita homeless population here has to be some of the highest of anywhere I've seen in the state of Florida. Many of the abandoned businesses, empty lots, are all filled with homeless people. Despite the fact Oneco having a small population, there's hundreds of homeless transient people that work their way in and out of this community. And it's nothing new. It's been that way for decades. This area has always been a magnet for homelessness and people that live transiently. There is a newer fire station here for Manatee County. There it is right there. But they mostly stay busy doing a lot of overdose rescues, as it's not uncommon for people here to be seen strung out, nodding out, overdosing on the sidewalks. The situation with addiction and homelessness in this neighborhood has to be one of the worst I've seen, not only in the state of Florida, but anywhere in the United States. You can see this gas station here in the back. You can tell it's flooded. There's usually homeless camps way back there in the woods, but because it's flooded, looks like this homeless person dragged his belongings to the front, and there he is laying behind this gas station, and that's probably because it's flooded back there. So unfortunately, most of these little wooded lots are just covered with homelessness, and if you walk through them, you have to be very careful because these lots are filled with hundreds, if not thousands, of used syringes. It's absolutely horrifying how many people have thrown their lives away in addiction in this neighborhood. It's like a level of hopelessness that is hard to beat. It really is depressing. There are particular houses like this one that try to keep it up and make it look pretty and nice, but unfortunately, the vast majority of people here have very little community pride, and most of the neighborhood just looks run down and decrepit. I'm not going to dive too deep into aspects of gangs on today's video, but this area is just plagued with just an incredible array of different gangs. I mean, it's just littered with gangs, and different neighborhoods have different cliques marked up. Right in here is a Cuban restaurant, Cafe Havana. I definitely recommend it. It's a good Cuban restaurant, but it's not the best. It's a hole in the wall. But for being what it is good. And I like to go there for a batido, a milkshake. I definitely recommend it. Right in the back is that Haitian restaurant that I was telling you guys about. And this little corner here has some great options for Caribbean dining. I like to go to Cafe Havana to get a hold of real Cuban bread. Like, they actually have the real Cuban bread. So if you are looking for that, they have it. Most of these shopping plazas in Oneco are going to have drunks or alcoholics or vagrants just sitting around drinking or shooting up in plain sight. It's not really nothing to hide here. It's just the composition of this neighborhood. If you ever need to do some affordable shopping, definitely recommend this little market right here. It's called El Mariachi, and we have a few of these in Bradenton. And I did a recent shopping trip here, and I came to the conclusion that it's about 30 to 40% cheaper than a conventional grocery store. So if you're in an economical crunch and you need to get some really affordable groceries just to make it through the month, check out El Mariachi Market. They're all over Bradenton. They're very affordable, and I think they provide a great service to the community in providing extraordinarily affordable groceries. I don't usually shop there, but when things get tight, we know that's where we're shopping. I'm not really sure what apartments rent for in this area, but I would assume they would have to be dramatically cheaper than anything else. Oneco is between Bradenton and Lakewood Ranch, two somewhat expensive areas, so I would assume that rents here would have to be considerably affordable. You do see for rent signs every once in a while, and if you get on some of these back streets, some of these neighborhoods actually look beautiful. I mean, these are good-looking neighborhoods in some directions, not all of them, but the problem isn't how nice these neighborhoods look. It's just crime-ridden on a level you can't imagine. Huge homeless population. That means people are out vagrant at all hours, day and night, going around seeing what they can steal. So while these neighborhoods look absolutely beautiful, that's a little deceiving, and it can definitely trick you. So but despite the fact these neighborhoods look beautiful back here, and some of these neighborhoods might look nice and big palm trees, and it looks gorgeous, it doesn't look bad. Don't let that fool you. These areas are adjacent to a lot of crime, a lot of homelessness. And if you come through here late at night, you'll see people kind of just driving bicycles around looking for anything they can steal. In fact, if you pay attention, there's almost nothing outside of these houses. You can see it's just the houses, the vegetation, the vehicles. There's not really anything laying around. Whatever you leave laying around here is going to get stolen. That building is interesting. It's got a person of some sort hanging off it. That's always caught my attention. But you can see shopping carts laying around. Obviously, homelessness is a huge problem here. Back on 15th Street, heading south at this point. So a lot of equipment rental and like tractor supply stores and tractor stores, things like that. Keep in mind that you're not too far away from Lakewood Ranch, and all of the workers that do all the landscaping in Lakewood Ranch probably live in this area here. So there's going to be a lot of equipment shops. So we stopped here at this gas station real quick to get some gas. And you can see there's just a few people vagrantly hanging around. Looks like one of them might have a suitcase. I think later on in the video we see this guy walking for miles with his suitcase. So it's almost every single time you get on 15th Street, you'll see somebody walking with a suitcase down the road. Now, one of the most upsetting things about Oneco is that there are no street lights and there are no sidewalks. Despite the fact that this area has a huge amount of traffic, there are no street lights, there are no traffic, anything. It's like the pedestrians here are completely worthless. And I think it's a huge disappointment for Manatee County that they haven't invested in streetlights and sidewalks for this community. This community has all types of businesses. Most of the people that are, coming in and out here are passengers walking on foot. They need to have pedestrian crossings. They need to have streetlights. They need to have sidewalks. But Manatee County, who is the entity in charge of providing this community utilities and access to infrastructure, they haven't done it. And I think there's been a lot of deaths on 15th Street that are definitely avoidable. Sadly, there's more vagrants outside of the 7-Eleven than there are customers. And, it's a huge safety concern that there's so many people that have to walk on this highway, and there aren't sidewalks, there's no street lights. Driving through at night is even more terrifying because you have all these pedestrians with bicycles and people walking on the street. A lot of them are under the influence and you can't really see them. It's completely dark. I think it's a huge responsibility that Manatee County has invested zero into infrastructure to protect the lives of the people that live in this community. But when you think about the fact that possibly 80% of the people that live in this community are Latin American, perhaps that's the answer to why the county doesn't care to invest here. Down in the southern end of Oneco, in this plaza, is a restaurant called Mi Havana. I tried to go there to get some Cuban food, but sadly, they were closed. They closed at 7 and it was 7:07. I missed them just by a few minutes. You can see here, for some reason, people walking on the road, and there is a sidewalk. Surprisingly, you can see a girl there holding a stick. I'm pretty sure she's going to be homeless. She's carrying a stick maybe to protect herself. Some of these back streets over here do have sidewalks, but why doesn't 15th Street? So we swing back around this plaza so you guys can see this little restaurant that I'm talking about. It's called Mi Havana. There it is right there. It's a favorite spot for the local sheriff's officers to get some Cuban food. It's one of my favorite places. A lot of the locals and people who work for the county and police and all that, they all have lunch there. It's super affordable, super fresh. The staff is super friendly. Shout outs to them. One of my favorite places to get Cuban food. And if you live anywhere in Bradenton, they are on Uber Eats, so you don't have to drive into this neighborhood to get their food. You can just order off Uber Eats, and they have great selections. And there's this little mini mart right here. There's always people hanging around. It is a Saturday, but despite the fact that it's late on a Saturday, you'll see there's still people working out and about. People in these communities, they don't stop working. That's just the nature of these neighborhoods. Very hard-working people. Here's somebody fixing a roof or fixing a sign. It's just awesome to see how hard the people in this community work. You know, they're very hard-working people, and it's like if they're not working for your property on the weekends, they're working on their properties, and it's just awesome to see that the people here have a very good work ethic. And if there's one thing I can say about the average working class person here, they may have very low incomes, but they are definitely hardworking people. Sometimes when I Uber drive, I pick up people and drop them in and out of this community. Some of them have 2 and 3 jobs, only going home to sleep for a few hours. They're just trying to make a bad situation turn into a good situation by working hard. But again, there are people that are unskilled. A lot of them don't speak English, so their income isn't going to be the highest. But they're definitely hardworking people that contribute greatly to our community. Check out that lowrider going that way. Now, you'll see a lot of females that are homeless out here or vagrant in this area. And it's really sad because it's a scary neighborhood. I mean, and they have to just walk around these neighborhoods. And we've even interviewed females from this neighborhood who've told us horrible stories about the abuses they've suffered on the streets and how law enforcement really is not the most proactive about defending the rights of women that are homeless in these neighborhoods. If something happens to them, it's not like it's a top priority for them. It's really sad. And sometimes I think the law enforcement officers do a great job, but then when it hits the prosecutors, that's where it's kind of like it doesn't go anywhere. It's not that the police officers aren't doing their jobs. Many times the police officers do a great job, but it's when it hits the courts, when it goes to the prosecutors, what happens from there forward is a crapshoot. And a lot of times when we have a neighborhood like this, you know, you have to remember that it's not just law enforcement. I think there's great law enforcement work in this area, and they have to be in some very difficult situations. I wouldn't imagine the hardships that a police officer working this area would have to face on a daily basis. I recently did a video here where there was police officers arresting a homeless person that was fighting back, and could you imagine that? This is an abandoned building right here. I think it used to be a car lot, but there's homeless people living inside of it, and they get in and out somehow. I guess they have a key or something, but you'll see them trying to get their way in and out of that building. Homeless people live all through. There's homeless camps all behind those bushes back there. But can you imagine being a police officer in this neighborhood here? You would have to have some desire to get up and get going every day. It would be tough. There's a little Venezuelan food truck, and they got the Cuban flag, so I thought they had some Cuban food. I stopped by to investigate. But when I got out, it only seemed like they only had Venezuelan food. They were all out of the Cuban food. And that's the second time I go there, and they just happen to be out of the Cuban food. So I think it's more like a Venezuelan food truck that just flies the Cuban flag to get more customers. I might be wrong on that, but I've tried going there several times. They are highly rated. Now, Venezuelan food is exceptionally good. As soon as it gets dark, this area just gets filled with people flocking to all these different food trucks. And I'll show you guys my favorite one by the end of the video. But this one here, I think it's called Mr. King or something, is one of the ones back in here. They're said to be some of the best ones as well. I haven't tried it, but I hear good things. So I was really curious about this Venezuelan and Cuban flag. And I'll tell you, there are several not hole-in-the-wall options if you're looking for Venezuelan food in the Bradenton area. You guys know right behind US 41 in downtown Bradenton, a few miles south of downtown, there's like a food truck park. Well, if you go there, in one of those food trucks, there's a Venezuelan food truck. It's amazing. They have Venezuelan burgers, which are just some of the most incredible burgers you're ever going to have. But they are called Botalon Grill. They're on US 41 in Bradenton, Florida. You can look them up. And they have some of the best Venezuelan food that I've ever had. It's a food truck, but they got tables and stuff where you can sit down. It's kind of like a giant food truck park. It's a little bit more upscale than this neighborhood here. Again, not everybody's ready to go into like a sketchy neighborhood and have like, you know, fast food outside of a food truck in the hood. I understand that. So that's just a more elegant option if you want to try Venezuelan food. There's a few sit-down Venezuelan restaurants in Bradenton. I'm not going to say their names, but I personally wasn't impressed either way. If you haven't had Venezuelan food, I definitely recommend it. And that restaurant that I recommended you guys is a great place to start. Their cheeseburgers are incredible. They do get kind of busy, so you want to go early in the night. If you go too late, they're going to be out of everything. But if you go early in the evening, they'll have a great selection. That's usually how it goes to food trucks anyways. All right, so now we're heading towards US 41. You'll notice that this is what most of the housing in Oneco looks like. Duplexes and single-family homes that have been converted into multiple housing units. So if you pay attention, just about every vehicle is a work truck. So very high population density. A lot of people got to be stuffed into one house here to be able to afford the cost of living. You're still in Florida, in a coastal beach town, so it's expensive to live here regardless. This might not exactly be Oneco. This might actually be Bradenton at this point. But we're going to pull up to Doña Betty's. If you want to try some street food in the Bradenton area, this is your go-to destination. Doña Betty's is on 63rd and US 41 in between Bayshore Gardens and Oneco. So you can see it was really packed. Now, I'm just getting over COVID. I'm not sure if I'm positive still, so I really wanted to eat here. But when I saw the crowd, I was like, I don't want to make all these people sick, so I decided not to go here. I was hoping because it was early in the night that there wouldn't be anybody and I would be able to just, whatever. But I saw the crowds of people and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to get people sick needlessly. So even though I really wanted it, I skipped on it simply because it was just a huge crowd there. And again, I'm just getting over COVID and they're not really very specific these days about how long it stays in your system. They're telling you, oh, in 5 days you're ready to go back to work. And I'm sitting here like, dude, it's like day 7. And I still feel as sick as when I first got it. So, question mark on that. I'm going to use my best discretion and skip on Doña Betty today. But I really wanted it. They're awesome. Their natural fruit juices are awesome. And they're very well lit. They're right on US 41. I definitely recommend it. You can't go wrong with Doña Betty, I'm telling you. Now, with the whole COVID thing, I've been doing as much Uber Eats as possible. But it's like $15 fees every time you do it. And we just can't afford it. I don't think it's possible to keep paying for Uber Eats. We've done as much as we can. In fact, I'm eager to go Uber driving again. I actually liked Uber driving. It's kind of addictive. The money's not great at all, but it's fun. It's entertaining, and while the money's not great, I actually do enjoy the Uber driving thing. And I'm gonna have to wait at least a few more days before I can get back into that, and that sucks. Like, I'm really anxious to get back out there and live life again, but gotta wait. So now we're heading back towards the east, leaving Bradenton and heading back towards Oneco. You can see there's a helicopter in the distance, way up in the clouds. There's a helicopter. All right, so it's almost nighttime, and I still haven't got anything to eat. I decided to go to Sam's because they have a drive-thru, and it's probably like the safest thing I could do. I'm kind of tired of eating Sam's, but they have a drive-thru. And so we're heading north on 15th towards Sam's, and this is the depressing 15th Street, which is like the main street of Oneco. You can see there's a sideline, like a little, I don't know what you call that, like a little bike lane, but most people that use that lane aren't on bicycles. They're actually walking, And even here, the bike lane looks like it got washed out by some dirt. So you'll see people late kind of walking through here at night. You'll see them eventually. Pretty dangerous to drive through here at night. You can see there's no street lights, and the bike lane gets washed out either way. So here there's no bike lane at all. And it's like, why don't they have sidewalks? I mean, this is an area that has a lot of pedestrian traffic. You can see the bike lane kind of comes on and off. You can see somebody there walking with a suitcase, somebody here with a bicycle, almost on the road. And late at night, there's a lot of pedestrian traffic. A lot of the homeless people only come out at night because it's too hot during the daytime. So there's actually even more people out at night than during the daytime, especially with the homeless population. They try to do everything at night because it's too hot during the daytime. But you can see how there's no street lights at all and literally no sidewalks in an area with a lot of pedestrians. I think Manatee County needs to do something about it. There's been countless deaths and pedestrian accidents here. It's not like they don't know that this problem exists. They know it exists, but this type of Latino predominant community isn't the priority. You can see there on the right, we just passed that building, there's actually a female on the balcony changing clothes. She looks like she was in underwear when I drove by, and that's kind of like normal. You used to see homeless people bathing, showering, or whatever late at, in the evening. They have no privacy. They're just out there. Right here is an Honduran food truck. So there's 2 Honduran restaurants, and this is the food truck here. Now, I kind of just drove by and looked at their menu real quick, but I didn't really see what I was looking for. You can see they have baleadas and burritos and all that, and tacos. It's just a few people hanging outside, but I decided not to for some reason. Honduran food can be really good if you get it from the right place, but it's kind of bland compared to Mexican food, so you got to make sure you get it from a good place, because if you just get it from an average place, it never seems to satisfy my desire for Latin American food. Not that there's great Honduran restaurants that I like, but they would usually have to be really good restaurants. I tend to like Salvadorian food more. Now, they had pupusas, which is Salvadorian, so that's something to remember. I took a note of that. I could see they had pupusas. On the left, there's a cemetery. Homeless people sleep there at night. People go there to smoke as well. It's an embarrassment of a cemetery, what's going on there. A lot of times the homeless people go and sleep in the back of the cemetery because the cops won't go bother them there at night. It's pretty sad, actually. There's usually people panhandling around this corner here as well. So here we're crossing State Road 70, which is 53rd to the locals. If you go to the left, you're heading towards the beaches. If you go to the right, towards Lakewood Ranch. And if you keep going straight, you head into San Jose, which is another district very similar to Oneco, but further north, also paralleling Bradenton. This area here is still referred to as Oneco, and it's closer to Bradenton at this point, but you're still in Oneco. Again, the continued theme of food trucks in all directions. It's just kind of the thing here. Lots of food trucks. We're actually going to go into Sam's, which is in Bradenton. This particular stretch at night is absolutely dangerous. It's reckless that Manatee County hasn't put out safe sidewalks in this area, especially if you go north of here, from here forward. You got to be really careful driving through here at night because there just aren't sidewalks. There's always pedestrians and people on bicycles coming through here at night, and it's dangerous. It's outright dangerous. These stretches are super dark at night, and a lot of people actually drive through here because this is what connects kind of like Oneco to Bradenton. So there's all types of traffic through here, especially late at night. Believe it or not, they're actually building apartments right here. I don't know what they're gonna go for. I think they're gonna go for like $1,700 to $1,800 a month for a 1-bedroom, I believe. I'm not sure. I'm just guessing by the location and what things usually cost around here. But it's a good thing that they're building these apartments close to the city core of Bradenton. It's actually very necessary. The locals are up in arms about it, but it's necessary. There's a need for housing. What are you going to do, not house people? It's like people are ridiculous. It's like the locals here, anything that's being built, they're angry about it, but you need housing. It's definitely necessary. You have a lot of homeless people. If you had more housing, you'd have more options for people. It's definitely necessary, especially in this area. This type of housing in this area is definitely necessary, and I think it's a good thing that that's going in there. And I can't even imagine how much worse the foot traffic is going to get in this area once those apartments are there. I mean, I can't believe, look, they have no streetlights here. You're heading north on 15th now. There's no streetlights, there's no sidewalks. Imagine when those apartments are done, the amount of foot traffic this area is going to have added to what's already here, and no sidewalks. It's unbelievable. They should actually have crosswalks across these intersections, like elevated crosswalks, so that the pedestrians can go above the road. Manatee County lets these people build these apartments, and they don't attach any stipulations for infrastructure for the area. It's unbelievable how reckless the building is in this area. At the same time, like, the housing is needed, but you gotta have infrastructure. Like, how are you gonna build all these new apartments there, knowing that most people that are gonna live there are low income? Most likely they're gonna walk to grocery stores and wherever they're going, and dude, there's no sidewalks out front. Anyways, it's absolutely reckless. This county has a few situations where you just gotta scratch your head and wonder, where are these county officials? Like, I Uber drive, and you wouldn't believe how dark this stretch we're on right now gets at night. It's dark, it's packed with people, it's packed with traffic. It's going to be even worse after these apartments go in. Yet, not a single freaking light, not a single sidewalk. It's absolutely reckless. All right, so we came to Bradenton and got our Sam's on 301, Sam's Grill. It's not healthy. It's horrible food. I should be embarrassed for eating this, but I eat it. As I'm leaving here, you can see there's somebody homeless with a book bag, but he's got a sidewalk. This area here is an area where I recently did a video where there's people just run across the road day in, day out. It's just incredible amounts of pedestrian traffic, but it's a 3-lane highway, and you do have lights on one side. You have sidewalks, so it's somewhat safer than 15th Street, without a doubt. All right, so we come back towards Oneco. This is 53rd, which is Highway 70. Now we're heading east towards Lakewood Ranch, so we'll be passing through Oneco again. There's a few superstores here, and this area at night also has a homeless population that sleeps in cars. So during the daytime, you got all the regular homeless people, but then at night, it's a whole different world. At night, you got all the people that sleep in cars that are homeless out of cars. So it's incredible to think that Oneco, despite being a small area, has hundreds of homeless people that live here. So now here's that cemetery we saw earlier. We saw it at the start of the video. There's the cemetery. And there's that lowrider I seen earlier. Remember the lowrider we saw earlier? It was like they had a little breakdown right there with the lowrider. I wanted to offer them help, but then I realized I got COVID. There's nothing I can do for anybody right now until I get better. Hopefully I'm getting through this and I can get back to normal, my regular routine. Having COVID's been horrible because I haven't been able to interact with people. This is the first time in about a week that I've been able to drive out and just feel good enough to get out of the house. I was going stir crazy up in here, y'all. Me being at home for 7 days, I was going crazy. I needed help. But there's 15th Street, the famous main street, we would call it, of Oneco, or Oneco, however you want to call it. Area of pawn shops, homelessness, overdoses, and a lot of good ethnic food. Unfortunately, this area is abandoned by the county, and many of the basic things you would expect a community to have, like well-lit streets and sidewalks and stuff like that, they don't get it. There's an elementary school here on Highway 70. This elementary school had a homeless camp in front of it. That's the video where I made of the homeless camp in front of the elementary school. It's up ahead on the left. You can't really see it now because it's dark, but they actually went in and cleared the homeless camp. But it was after I made the video. It was a homeless camp literally in front of an elementary school, full of needles. And according to law enforcement, allegedly, some of the people that were working told me that when they went in there, there was a registered predator. There's a school right there on the left. You can't really see it because it's dark, but there was a homeless camp right there on the left. It was literally in front of an elementary school. And when they went in there, they found allegedly a registered offender that was living in a homeless camp in front of a school. It could have definitely hurt somebody. So me getting involved and making that video about that homeless camp, needle-infected homeless camp in front of the elementary school, could have been what got that registered offender discovered living in front of an elementary school. Go figure what could have happened, what tragedy was prevented by me making that video about a registered, I mean, the video wasn't about him. It was about the needle-infected homeless camp. I mean, literally, there was needles everywhere in this homeless camp. And I was like, you can't have this in front of an elementary school. Well, sure enough, they go in there, and there's a registered predator living in this homeless camp in front of an elementary school. I mean, it's so unacceptable. But our video could have created some awareness, and, well, I mean, I do what I can with my YouTube channel. This area here, Highway 70, heads towards Lakewood Ranch. Now, as the homelessness gets pushed further and further away from Bradenton, now the homelessness is pushing all the way into Lakewood Ranch. And homelessness is a huge problem in this area. You might drive through here at night and you may not notice it. You drive through here at 2 or 3 in the morning, there's people with bicycles and trailers hauling all the stuff. They're dumpster diving. You even see women walking the streets around here late at night. It's unbelievable how much crime and homelessness this area has. And, you know, part of it is just the lack of law enforcement. I don't know what to say. I mean, in the case of the homeless camp in front of that elementary school, it took me making a YouTube video about it for them to come in and shut down the homeless camp. And when they go to shut it down, they discover they got a freaking predator living in front of an elementary school. But it took my YouTube video to expose the problem, because if the problem hadn't been exposed, they would have done nothing about it. And that's kind of the sad thing about this area, that, you know, these communities are voiceless and nobody's really talking about the problems that these communities are facing. These areas that are mostly migrant have their young population is mostly U.S. citizens. The parents probably aren't, but the people that are born here, they're U.S. citizens, and their students going to our schools, and they're American citizens. They're not going to go anywhere. And just because their parents are migrants and they live in these marginalized communities, now we allow a predator to live in a homeless camp adjacent to an elementary school. It's not acceptable. It wouldn't happen in Lakewood Ranch where I live, so why would it happen to these people? It's just a question mark of, here in Lakewood Ranch where I live, we get sidewalks, and they sure wouldn't have a freaking homeless camp in front of a school in Lakewood Ranch a few miles away. So why is it acceptable for it to exist here? Again, question marks. Voiceless communities, but if you put a little bit of heat underneath them, they do move and make things happen. And at least I can say, for the sake of this community, at least by helping shut down that homeless camp, we got one registered offender away from a school, and I can take credit for that proudly. But the homeless camp is already back. It's been a few months. The grass has grown. We've had a lot of rain, and there's already other homeless people living there again. Hopefully, these homeless people won't try to consider starting a needle junkie homeless camp in front of a school. You got to draw the line somewhere for these people. Right here is a Wawa or a racetrack. It's a big gas station. I was there at night recently, and there's 4 people smoking fent outside the gas station. I'm thinking, there's always cops here late at night. How bold are you? But again, this is an area that has historically for decades dealt with addiction, homelessness, and all these problems inherently plague this community. And unfortunately for the people that are poor and this is the only place they can afford to live, they're putting their families in this environment. Crazy to think that 5 miles away in Lakewood Ranch, considered one of the safest communities in the country. But again, many of the things we get in Lakewood Ranch, like sidewalks and police patrols and all that, here don't matter. And I feel bad for the law enforcement officers who have to work in this environment. I don't feel bad for the commissioners who, whoever it is, job it is, to make sure that these neighborhoods get some street lights at least. It's well needed. It's definitely well needed. And it's a sad situation that's happening in Oneco. But there are great people there, hardworking people. And thanks to their hard work, the rest of us in society can benefit from it. That's the community of Oneco in Manatee County, Florida. I hope you guys have enjoyed today's video. If there's anything you know about this community or you'd like to say, hit me up in the comments section. Now, I'm an advocate for giving due process to the homeless people, but due process means that when you break the law, you go to jail. In the case of a registered offender living in front of an elementary school in a needle-infected homeless camp, I hope you go to jail or prison for a long time, because that's not the type of thing we need. These kids don't deserve that. They need better. The community deserves better. But again, who knows? I think Manatee County is a great place. I'm not trying to trash talk Manatee County. Up ahead, we're going to be passing the Manatee County Technical College, where I got my high school diploma. I wasn't able to accomplish that in Naples, where I lived for 20 years, but I was able to accomplish it here. And it's a great community, but there are some issues in this community that definitely need to be addressed. And I think as far as infrastructure in Oneco goes, it needs to happen. And I think we all really know the real reasons why it's not happening. It's a shame, but that's the United States of America. Check it out. Southern Life.